Easing into climate change. For 6 months in 2003, the Conservation Corps and community partners produced a series of participatory grassroots radio broadcasts across the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. The purpose of the project was to experiment with participatory grassroots media as a tool to inform the community and to provoke discussion about an important issue, in this case, global climate change. Each event was simultaneously and globally webcast. The interactive project website was updated daily during each broadcast. But more important than the technology were the participants. Community partners helped organize each event, and for the most part, local youth operated the equipment. Musicians also played an important role. Participatory grassroots communication can be defined as a facilitated process of cultural celebration and public discussion of an issue relevant to local people.
He was the one, gave it out to you. He was the one, showing you through the dark times.
It was a rush to get the first event off the ground in March following the worst winter in 100 years. The project started several months late, and we had to facilitate 2 events before the students started preparing for final exams. Youth are absolutely essential as volunteers and catalysts in grassroots community media. However, participatory communication is well known in southwestern Newfoundland, and we had lots of local partners to help with the event. The town of Kippens donated their community center, while volunteers and organizers came from communities and schools, the Community Youth Network, and the Long Range Regional Economic Development Board. The first event was very much a learning experience for the planning committee.
Mine would have been, for me personally, with youth kids involvement. It came in 2 ways. One was the live session we did at the Kippens Community Centre with the Girl Guides and just the teen help corps kids running around, lots of energy in the room, bebopping around, hands on the dials, teaching them how to use the equipment, seeing their amazement and interest in some of the issues we were discussing.
I think it was the environmental panel, the citizens panel, where people talked about their sort of personal experience with fighting the good fight for environmental protection. That was pretty wild.
I really enjoyed it when the high school kids and the middle school kids from the Teen Help Corps came in. It was a little bit chaotic, but they were very available to do things like throw together a quick intro and introduce Bruce, or do a quick interview with Bruce, or get on the equipment, which a lot of them were familiar with doing. So that was a highlight, having them there. I thought there were an awful lot of them. A lot of them didn't have jobs to do, so trying to spread the love around a little bit, even if one kid just got a 30-second job, was better than nothing. But definitely having them there was good, and I really enjoyed having the live music and having guests coming in to do interviews and panels, and having the kids at the same time were probably highlights.
Well, I think more attention paid to the interactive participatory angle or component of this. So thinking through more clearly how we could have had people phone in on issues, maybe participate in the panel, the environmental panel, or even, if we're going to use contests, let's do it really well and really play them up, pump them up so that they're fun and interesting and with real questions, rather than sort of, oh, we got a moment here, let's cram in a contest. So, and maybe the remotes too, maybe not necessarily more remotes, but maybe different types of remotes. Maybe we could be in a senior's home and talk to them about how they've seen the weather change or something like that. So the participation piece.
We had some ideas around promotion in terms of how we could promote it a little better, a little more, both nationally and locally, using listservs and stuff nationally, but locally having more time. Obviously this was one was winged off pretty quick itself, and use the community more to help promote it in some media ways and other people's promotional materials that could help, like newsletters of different groups and organizations if the time window is there. And probably try to get a little bit more community group involvement to help in terms of interview guests, to profile what they're doing, who they are, what they're about, to bring in a little larger local listening audience and get some participation. And the other big thing would be to try and get some active live phone-in stuff happening through panels or interviews or prize award-winning sessions or something of those natures.
I think we could have a live studio audience, maybe. That would be very cool, especially if it's in kind of a public space, an atrium where people are going to be walking through. Let's really play that up. So coffee and donuts and people in the back talking and meeting and networking while they're waiting for their turn to be on the program. So a bit of a live venue would be very neat, with maybe even live from the audience comments and questions with an Oprah. That would be very cool. Somebody with a mic roaming through the audience could be neat. In addition to a phone-in with a few panelists up at the table to keep it going somehow. I think that would be kind of a neat thing to do.
I guess hindsight is 20/20, and I would have liked to have had more established contacts. I guess getting more community groups contacted earlier perhaps would have gotten more people in, like people from Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's not climate change related, but it would have brought more people into the studio and possibly had more people tuned in. Gosh, I'm sure I could think of a million things I'd do differently. It would have been nice to have more kids groups in. Like, the reason why the Girl Guides and the Sparks were included is because they had the hall rented while we were there, and it just sort of happened to be a good way to get around that double booking problem, and they both ended up working to our advantage quite a bit. So I think getting small groups, because the Girl Guides are a relatively small group of girls, into the hall for an hour worked really well. So I think perhaps getting more groups like that in. But again, I don't know how feasible that would have been during the day, because a lot of the dead time was during the school day, like before 4. And obviously, like, publicity could have been beefed up a lot earlier, but a lot of it was simply time restraints. So, yeah.
I think it would be great if we would try to have a couple of excellent panels, and it would be really nice if we could do the outside broadcasting that we've been talking about. I could just envision downtown on West Street, in that park down there over at Margaret Bowater Park, some type of setup where we're outdoors, live musicians, a lot of people can see us, we're visual, getting a lot of drop-ins, and it just spreads like wildfire throughout the community. I think that would be one of the greatest things, so pray for a good forecast.
Corner Brook is a center for environmental education and advocacy groups. The second event focused on a range of environmental issues as well as climate change itself. Participatory grassroots media happens in public places, not studios. In Corner Brook, we took advantage of May sunshine and moved outside. The second event was also a time of reflection. Debbie Corbin of the Sponsoring Climate Change Action Fund explains why the project was funded.
Well, I think the reason we were interested in it was because it was a new concept. We hadn't seen it in all of the proposals that we saw, and this was a proposal that we were requesting under tools and products. And we have other centers across the country that serve very remote communities. For example, in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Yukon and Northwest Territories. So when I read the proposal, I could see the replicability of, if it works, this type of concept and approach to other communities across Canada. So this would be able to reach other smaller communities. So I thought this was just a great idea. And the fact that you had built into the proposal the tools that you'll develop as a result of this that can be then transferable to other organizations. So it certainly met a lot of the criteria that we were looking for, or that we had applied to our evaluation. So I think it's a really interesting approach. It's great the way you've got the kids. You're involving the kids because we believe kids are probably one of the key audiences to be able to change behavior in the long term. And they seemed really keen this morning. And I hope over the next two, I guess you're going to be going to 2 more events or creating 2 more events. That kids will certainly play a part in the festivities. So that's that's a couple of the reasons why we funded the project.
Bruce Gilbert, then Executive Director of the Conservation Corps, grapples with defining the unique potential of this style of community media.
We're doing this because I guess we have a sense that there's been a lot of citizen dropout effect happening in Canada and other Western societies. People are overwhelmed by information and television and feel that their voices aren't heard, and so the cynicism is at an all-time high. So when you put a big, ugly, complex environmental issue in front of them, there's a tendency to treat that like all other complicated issues and just shrug and say, well, that's for somebody else to deal with. So participatory communications would be to try and would be a process of trying to get people to talk about such things, and we using appropriate technologies. Here in modern day Canada, using radio and video and the web seem to be fairly appropriate technologies because they're pretty much everywhere and people are familiar with them. So we're taking modern technologies that are usually used just for individual information seeking, like the web, or to be talked down to, like TV and most radio, except for a few radio call-in shows. Radio and TV are not participatory. Now, us, on the other hand, the participatory communications people, are more concerned about people taking that step, making an action to actually come to the phone and phone in or walk into the hall where the event is happening. It's participatory. It's about people engaging one another. Within that, there's content. In a way, the content is somehow secondary. If the content on climate change brings a variety of people here today and they all meet and decide that they want to go back to their community and fix the derelict soccer field, that would be a victory. It's up to the people to decide what they want to do together. We can draw them in sometimes with content themes that we've chosen, or oppositely, we might just have no content themes and just put a menu of things out there that people might want to talk about and hope that they come just from a civic virtue point of view. They come because they think that we got to work together on things in our community. So you can approach it different ways. The goal is participation. The goal is not information dissemination. Technology is a tool. In a way, with regards to this radio project, if none of those sophisticated pieces of equipment in there were actually plugged into the wall, and everybody thought they were, and we were all here working together, beavering away at running a community program on environment, climate change, and various community matters, it would still be a success, because it's really about the people here that are participating. Now, of course, that's foolish, but we want people outside to hear it because it is a radio project. But in a way, it's almost secondary. So the technology, on one level, it's fun and it's modern and it draws youth, for instance. They like the buttons and bells and whistles and knobs. So it's a drawing card. On another level, it's a participation enhancer. Community participation is 100 people in the hall having a knock them down, drag them out meeting on the problem with their water supply. Better community participation is that broadcast live on the radio for the community, so the shut-ins and the people who couldn't make it to the hall can come and participate as well. or maybe they can play it later on, or maybe they'll make a copy and send it around. So the technology is a communication enhancer. It's not the be-all and the end-all.
Ivan Emke, a Memorial University professor and project advisor, attempts a definition of participatory communication and reflects on the importance of cultural celebration.
And the other way to define communication, though, is a way of a community defining itself, celebrating itself, and maintaining itself over time. So instead of messages being taken across space, as in tools, communication can also be a way in which a community is maintained across time, so that they talk to each other, learn from themselves, and so on. And one of the things about participatory grassroots communication is that in a way it brings together those two definitions of communication. So you have the tools which disseminate the messages that go out there, but you also have the explicit attempt to use these tools as a way of maintaining the community over time. And usually, in southwest Newfoundland, or as you say, southwest Newfoundland, it's been used in communities which are in crisis. So the whole question of maintaining a sense of community over time is not a moot question, it's a very real question. Well, on a surface level, or on a programming level, it's important to have the two because it's more interesting for people. Just to see their local musicians up there, and so they stay tuned in, and then they might listen to some substantive material as well. So just at the level of programming, if you're running a radio station or a television station or whatever, you juxtapose, you throw in some stupid program. I didn't mean that the music was stupid, because that's, I fear that. But you throw in some music that is purely for entertainment, or some material that's purely for entertainment, and hope that they also watch the Fifth Estate or whatever. Now I'm uncomfortable with how I've just characterized these as one being good for you and one being just fun to do. I don't mean to do that, so if, don't write me letters and complain. I'm not suggesting that you have, in order to make people eat the broccoli, you have to give them some M&Ms first, and that the broccoli is the issues and the M&Ms is the music. But at some level, I think it's important to make interesting programs for the local people. I don't think that's pandering to anything. And what's going to be of interest to local people has to be local issues. And I think we've got a sense from the people that we know, we've talked to, who've watched these programs and listened to them, that that's the big key, is something that's local. Whether it be the condition of the roads, or whether it be job creation schemes, whether it be some environmental issue about fish or forest. I think those are all important, but I think the important thing is that the local content is there. Juxtaposing cultural celebration and I'm not sure really how you'd separate them out necessarily. Like, if you're going to talk about local things, you really should include local culture as well.
Just to wake up in the morning to the quiet of the cove, and to hear Aunt Bessie talking to herself.
The team had 3 months to plan the third program in August, and it was completely different. Parks Canada became the main partner. They hosted the event at a very busy visitor center at the height of tourism season in Terra Nova National Park. Also, and very significant, the Conservation Corps assigned the event to its Summer Green Team program. There were 4 groups of energetic youth making community radio fly in the national park. One indication of a different attitude in planning was the choice of site. Broadcasting down by the water wasn't the best technically, but it was an ideal site to involve many people. Another advantage was lots of live music and storytelling, both from park staff and the local community. So, the Terra Nova event, in many ways, reaffirmed the basic concept of participatory community media. People are always more important than technology.
The autumn when the trees are flaming red, kicking leaves that fall around me, watching sunset paint the hills. It's all I'll ever need to feel at home.
I've been involved with community advocacy in this province because our culture is kind of under strife in the past decade, and we lose a little bit of it every week. And we've come to realize that to turn this around, we need three things. And the biggest part is a medium to talk about the solutions, because the mainstream media seems to be more focused on talking about the problems. So this is really exciting to me. And to, the thousands of people that are in the organizations that I've been involved with in the past couple of decades. And I certainly hope to see much more of this, because it no doubt lies in the answer. A lot of people, they don't really have time to read a paper or sit down and study it, but they have time to listen to the solutions coming through them from their own people through mediums like this.
Well, best for the environment and the best, most informative, I think, was the youth panel. I found the youth panel really, really interesting, and really, it was good to have a conversation with because I was in the audience, and it was good to have a conversation with so many young people about environmental issues and different situations that we might be placed in and things like that. So I found that really good. But I also liked the entertainment. I thought it added a good blend, good mix to the radio show.
I liked hosting. I thought I thought that was really fun. I liked singing Tina on the radio the first day.
Yeah. We're practicing.
I liked Terry's presentation. I thought that it was fun and it was interactive, and a lot of people do know a little bit about climate change, but from Terry's presentation I learned a lot, and I know a lot of people did too, and I think that it was really good that he did the presentation. So that was my favorite.
Yeah, I forgot about Terry's presentation. I found it really good, and the kids seemed to be, it was sinking in with all the kids, and so I think it was really good and really important. I like Terry's presentation. Terry's cool.
Yeah, Terry does awesome presentation.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And he gave out prizes, and the prizes were so good. He gave out environmental posters, a climate change poster, and a climate change book, and those are really good prizes for the kids because they'll enjoy it and they'll read the things that are on it and learn from that too. So that was great.
Yeah. Cool. Nobody wants to tune into a boring station, but I thought this was very fun. I'd love to listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Better than Oz FM, I tell you.
Yeah. Some of them develop new skills. Like I was talking about Peter. Now he can put on his resume, if you liked, work the soundboard or whatever you call it for the radio program. And I think just, something else to add to their life experiences that they can say, oh, remember that time I did that radio project at Terra Nova? Or someone might mention Ryakuga Communications or Conservation Corps. And they'll be like, yeah, I was a part of that 5 years ago or whatever. So I think that each of them, some people have more roles than others, but I think it was beneficial for everybody because it's just something new and different. And like I said, definitely a beneficial experience all around.
My favorite part, I like the youth panel, although it was a bit too long, but it was very good to get everybody's views involved and just to give us a stand of, a lot of people said, well, what's this radio show? And we tell them, but it got some youth involved and actually, okay, this is what's going on in the world, this is what's going on in Newfoundland. But yeah, I really like that, and I like Terry's climate change presentation and the games, and I like the interactive stuff. The tapes, I found when I turned on the radio when I was in the truck and I heard the tape, it was something kind of, oh, it's only the tape. We enjoyed the live stuff more.
Obviously, it was the participation we had this time on a couple fronts. One was with our venue and venue host, Parks Canada. Absolutely amazing, totally supportive, bent over backwards in every shape or form. Got involved and took ownership of the project, hosted for almost a full day. Sent down at least 5 or 6 people who work here that played and sang guitar and whatnot, performed for us. Really ecstatic about the project, made you feel really welcome here and part of their community, and that was fantastic. And the other part was, I'm sure a lot of people will say as well, was the youth involvement, the green teams being involved, just the positive energy and the exuberance that was there makes it much more enjoyable for everybody and jazzes everyone up. Everyone wants to keep it rolling and keep it moving, and that were the two biggest elements of this event that were really nice to see.
Without a doubt, it was the being surrounded by such a supportive group of people, the partners. beyond just during the event, prior to the event, having a really good committee of people helping to plan the event, and that just started a ball rolling that made the radio show just take on a life of its own, and it was much more a community event as opposed to an isolated lineup of guests and performers, and it was a much more efficient way of doing things. So obviously the partnership between Terra Nova and the Green Teams was fantastic, and also there was a lot more participation from the people in the office in St. John's. Darren and Jamie were really helpful too.
Well, the Green Teams was kind of a natural fit for us in the sense that we had youth involved in environmental events, and of course the Conservation Corps being now the Climate Change Education Centre for the province. And one of our key focus this year in the Green Teams was their Environment Awareness Days, which is focused on climate change. And they're, I guess, in the capacity to be able to assist us and be able to tie in. And I think that they would all I could echo my comments of it. It was definitely an enthusiastic and an exciting and a great learning opportunity for the young people that were involved.
I think it was great. I think it was really positive, and the biggest question that I hear from people is, when are we going to do it again? Because I think the visitors, the staff, everybody got really excited about the project. I think they were really sorry to see it end, actually. The 3 days wasn't long enough for them. They wanted to see it continue. And whether they were being interviewed or involved in, setting up equipment and getting the program running, they all really enjoyed their participation. And it was a great opportunity for us to get messages out, not only about climate change, but also about a lot of the programs that are going on in the park, the events, a lot of the stuff that happens behind the scenes in terms of resource conservation and management, that kind of stuff. It went really well. Yeah. I honestly can't think of anything that I think needs improvement. There was a couple things that we did discuss in terms of having more interactive radio, which I agree would be a great idea, to have people calling in and have more involvement that way with things happening live, and I think that would probably generate even more excitement and interest in it. And of course, whenever anybody's going to be on the radio, they tune in and all their friends tune in, and that really excites people as well. I think it went really well, and I think it was a success for everybody involved. I really did.
The perfect event was, I guess, building on the existing learnings from the other 3 events that we've had. And one of the key things that I would say here in Terra Nova that was successful was involving a lot of local community-based groups, local talent, local young people, and having those young people involved in the event so that they take ownership themselves and even creating parts of the venue so that it's their event, and it's the Conservation Corps and Ryakuga are just kind of the mentors that will actually stimulate that event that we'll do in St. John's, so that again at the end of the day we can come out of look, we're coming out of Terra Nova right now and everybody raving how successful this event was.
The perfect St. John's event would have a variety of really committed partners who would take a key role in planning the event, weeks in advance. They would line up guests that were of interest to them and, ideally help publicize it. Everybody would be talking about this event coming up. It would be very much a youth-run event. There would be it would be in a venue that allowed us to broadcast in whatever the best 8 hours of broadcast time available. That would have to be decided, and it would be in a venue that would allow us to have lots of free reign in terms of music and have a live audience in place for the music, would have room for people to be, given food and drink and all that stuff and taken care of. And it would have a key group of young people who really took over from the production side and would maybe even take on the role of producer or assistant producer. And I would like to be a resource person and a contact person for the St. John's event and really hand it over to young people as much as possible, because something I really learned from this event is if you let go of something and just let other people take care of it, things actually do happen. You don't have to make sure you get everything done yourself.
I think another lesson learned that we need to incorporate to the St. John's one is bit ironic actually. We're in sort of two federal facilities. The one in Cornbrook Forestry Centre is sort of seen as a federal university institution building. They think of it as a public building, a public venue, but it obviously wasn't perceived that way. Because we didn't get a lot of public, it's obviously not a comfortable setting for them. They don't come there a lot. Here, the Marine Interpretation Centre, although being an arm of the federal government, a federal government building, it's viewed as a public facility, and that's really what it is. It's an interpretation centre and an environmental awareness and education centre, and that showed a lot. The other thing was, and one of the Parks Canada people mentioned it to us this morning in a meeting we had, is that even though we're at one venue, it seemed like many venues, because you had the ability to step outside, to be in the wet lab, go to the touch tank area, into the back room, main foyer. It's like there was a freedom. You're not barred up in a little room, like a studio type thing. There was a lot of freedom that way. So in St. John's, I would hope to see the youth participation, the great partnerships like we had here, with a great venue, with some good promotion. And I think the other added advantage is that we should be able to get a lot more participation, not other than just the size difference in community, but it'll be the fall of the year again, and schools will be back in full force, so we can probably tie you on youth participation in that one.
Dried figs, mama, that's my favorite food. Dried figs, mama, that's my favorite food. Gotta go to the garden and pluck me some. Consume my veggies, cause I've become organically grown. New potatoes sure do cook up good. Said new potatoes sure do, they sure do cook up good. I gotta go to the garden and dig me some. Consume my veggies, cause I've become organically grown.
The St. John's event was, in many ways, the climax of tuning into climate change. Once again, Parks Canada turned up as the main partner, offering its visitor centre on historic Signal Hill. Not only was the hill great technically for broadcasting, but it was also the site of the first Marconi transatlantic broadcast 102 years before. There had been more than 2 months since the Terra Nova event, so the coordinator and the planning committee had lots of time to recruit local youth and promote the project. Also, by the fourth event, participatory communication was much better understood as a process. We had all learned a lot, so even the organizers were more in sync with the facilitation of a grassroots process instead of a professional production. And probably most important, St. John's was the home of the planning committee and the Corps itself. It's easiest to facilitate grassroots community media where you have lots of contacts. After all, participatory communication is a people process.
What I found really worked in St. John's was the partnership was excellent. The venue was really good. There was a lot of live programming as opposed to a lot of taped. And it's interesting actually going over the logs from Kippens, working our way through, because in Kippens there was a lot of taped material from the October event. And then working our way through, it gets more and more live.
Should we ask them?
No, that's fine. Something that really worked well with the volunteers was having what I call a youth contingent. So rather than having a different round of youth coming through every 2 or 3 hours, there was one group of youth that was there for the full 4 days. So they had 1 day of training, and then they were there for pretty much the whole 3 days during the event. So it was really great that you always knew that all the technical jobs were covered off. And then when other people came in, you had youth training youth, so it was really created a nice dynamic. And there was lots of music, which worked really well. And just nicely spaced music too, like every hour or couple of hours there was a new musical guest, so that was really nice. Under what I would do differently, as usual, it seems with every event it's been really hard to get school participation. It's really challenging. Some were excellent to deal with. It was just really straightforward. Like Booth, for example, I just phoned up. I said, are you interested? They were like, yeah, it sounds great. How many kids do you need? And Bob's your uncle.
The first day I went up there, we came up from school, and there was a live radio broadcast on 101.1 FM, but it was very low frequency. It was only 300 watts or whatever it was, and they were doing a segment on climate change in Atlantic Canada, and we had guest speakers from BC all the way local, and we had local musicians like Barry Canning and Peter Navarze come up and perform and just talk about what they thought about climate change, and we played tapes of things across Canada explaining about climate change and stuff like that.
If there were more kind of events like that?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
I love volunteering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think other kids like it too?
Well, we have a media club at my school, and that's from our school, that's who got to go up and do it. It was really cool.
Great.
There was about 8 people in the club.
Yeah.
Well, we had the broadcast. There was lots of folks around. I thought it worked out great. I was quite astounded when I came in. I was there when it got set up, and everybody was sort of rushing to set it up that last day. And then I came in, and they had it up, and it was going, and everything was going just marvelously. And the folks were coming in, doing the interviews. There was all kinds of good information. I helped, make some of the appointments for interviews and that sort of thing. And, I got nothing but enthusiasm, no matter who I called, whether they were, the ED of some organization, some industrial organization, or, if there was just somebody used to working in the community kind of thing. I think it was non-threatening. I don't think they felt that they were going to be put on the spot or, challenged in the same kind of way as you would be in a, regular media situation. You know how reporters and that like to stir it up a bit. So I don't think that people felt defensive. And I think that sometimes, in terms of, wanting to do media stuff and get the word out, and that you often have to deal with a little bit of aggression in that, or confrontation from reporters, right? I mean, I think it helped people get their information out, and in a safe environment. So, I mean, I was interested in this process, and that, anything that, gives you a little more of a exposure to how some other people are trying to engage communities. And also I was interested in the technical part as well, right? In terms of how you could use public broadcasts, how you could use webcasts and that to get to, in remote areas, right?
Zero down. That's how I managed to pay for it. With no 25 bucks in change, no garbage bag road trip. Straight off the top of my head, I woke up and closed it. And if I'm held accountable for all I say, zero down, one away. In the bare bulb glare of the back, we hook up and stacked it. Steel drum tapping out code, the video cracked it. Survived to talk about it to this day. Zero down, one away. Designed for the betterment of mankind. The reward never crossed their mind. The acquisition. Oh,
How did I find it here today? I found it actually extremely well run for a radio station that comes out of a box.
Participatory communication has been on the go in rural Newfoundland and Labrador for almost 40 years. This long-time process was sponsored by Memorial University until the demise of its Rural Extension Service in 1991. However, media in support of community development remains to have a recognized value in the province. In 1993, the Community Education Network sponsored a series of community television forums in Western Newfoundland. 7 years later, Sharing Our Future, Partager Notre Avenir, became the first Newfoundland project to use the combination of community radio, webcast, and interactive website as a communication tool. The basic principles of Sharing Our Future are all the voices. Participating in public discussion of important issues is a responsibility as well as a right. Collaboration. Get lots of partners and work together. Inclusion. Everybody is welcome. Look for commonalities, not differences. Cultural celebration. A milieu of joyful celebration of local culture enhances the relevance of discussion of issues. Positive mirroring. In order to plan positive change, people must have a sense of self. Youth power. Quoting the National Youth Council of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, youth is the present answer to the future. In 1998, the Conservation Corps, working with West Coast groups including Ryakuga and the Community Education Network, facilitated a participatory youth conference, Youth, the Environment, and the Economy. Lessons learned from this event are helpful for any group attempting a grassroots participatory communication process.
Hi, my name is Lisa Gallant. What you're about to see is a recipe for an interactive participatory youth conference, so pay attention. The first ingredient is collaboration. Don't try to do it all by yourself. Get lots of community partners and pool your resources. Secondly, you need direct contact, person to person. Don't rely on letters, fax, and email to jumpstart your conference. During your planning process, don't forget logistics, the nuts and bolts. Where will your participants stay? How are they going to eat? How are they going to get there? Make sure capable people on your team handle these details. If you want an exciting conference, go for critical mass. Make sure there's lots of youth, lots of resource people, and lots of things to do. Think big. Sure, plan your agenda, but don't forget flexibility. Be aware of what's happening on the floor of the conference, and be ready to change your agenda at any time. Go with the flow. Don't be boring. Push participation. Involve the youth while planning and facilitating the conference. In the end, it'll become a lot less work and a lot more fun. And finally, Toku Land, spice it up. Coming up next is a song written and performed by Kathy Peddle of Corner Brook. Don't go away.
For Janet McDonald, coordinating Tuning into Climate Change was her first experience in participatory media.
What have I learned about participatory communications in the past 9 months? I'd say, considering where I started, which never heard of it, I've learned a lot and I have to say I'm really enjoying it and would love to do something else with it. It's very exciting to see, especially in communities like Terra Nova and St. John's, where we've had really good partners who are totally new to it. See how enthusiastic they've gotten? It's good to see. So what I've learned is that partnerships are absolutely key. I was kind of inclined at the beginning to try and do a lot of the stuff myself where A, that's not the point, and B, it's too much for one person to do. So partnerships are absolutely essential. And it's good to have a good key partner, and if that person comes with the venue, even better, because it provides a home base and a vested interest in the landlord. So that works great if, for example, with Parks Canada with both our partnerships with Terra Nova and Signal Hill was awesome, having the partner and the venue being one and the same. I would say make sure that your key partner is directly involved with any content planning, and don't be afraid to ask them to do so if they don't immediately assume that they would have a role in that, to definitely encourage them to have a presence in the programming, and just sort of phrase it in a way that doesn't sound bossy, but encouraging them to, like I say, have a presence. And kind of what I referred to before was other partners can take on different roles, so you don't have to expect every partner to be a key player in every element of the production.
What have I learned? Wow.
Like, what are your learnings? You want to
I know,
that,
it's taken me off guard a little.
Yeah.
That's a big question. What have I learned? I've learned that it's a phenomenal way to communicate. There's no doubt about that. Very cost effective in terms of the messaging and the audience reach and the ability to incorporate people and involve them around an issue of particular concern to someone, no matter what it is. I've learned in dealing with environmental issues and education outreach for people in the same lines as that and knowing the money that gets spent, just how cost effective it is for these type of projects. And I think it's had very good success in reaching audiences. I've learned that there's a lot to learn. That I've seen in this latest project a lot of changes as we progressed through. Each event became better, and that was mainly due to staff that were working on that event learning more about the process and what is required and what makes it successful. And in a lot of ways it's something you almost got to live and experience to learn, I think, which we kind of have talked about a lot in the past. But yet, that being said, there's a lot of little things that have been learned that, in terms of the end product, that could help other groups starting this off. Just a lot of simple things like, a log and schedules and just little tidbit stuff. I've learned that youth are amazing. Their energy, their passion, and that they bring to it, and some of their perspectives and things are rather intelligent. I think we often underestimate their abilities and the role that they can and should play. That's one thing for sure. I've learned that in terms of youth and youth involvement, that teachers need to be involved or see more of this stuff, to see the benefits to students being involved and get out of their ruts at times. In our last event, we really had youth get involved without teachers because the teachers weren't interested and the youth just came on their own, and it was phenomenal. I've learned that people in the community, whether it be artists, musicians, whatever, are willing to commit a lot to these type of processes. In our St. John's event, you got a guy like Barry Canning, who's the first musician to play, who's now going to be a headliner at the ECMA Awards and be in the songwriters circle and all this kind of stuff. And these people just come out wholeheartedly, their own time, and do their thing, and are quite supportive. And I think anything that you can get people from all walks of life in the community supporting and involved in is a pretty amazing feat in itself.
I guess the best way to describe what I've learned, I guess, is what one of my friends actually said to me when they actually were listening to the radio event here in St. John's. And that was, you've really made, I guess, a complicated topic and a very challenging topic of climate change, which they also indicated they thought was very boring, into something that was quite interesting, and giving the venue and the things that we actually had on the radio project for those 3 days, something that he was able to, I guess, get a message from, and was actually also found it very entertaining. So I guess it was, for me, what I really learned was that this type of medium of using the radio and also simultaneous webcast was definitely a way to get a message that was sometimes a complicated message across to the local, I guess, Joe and Jane. Well, that's one of the things that I guess I found from my years' experience with the Conservation Corps. It's going back to the grassroots. It's going back to the youth that are from the community. And I know now that a lot of other environmental and cultural-based community groups around the province that are looking to get stewardship and trying to get messages out in the communities are getting away from the mainstream media of going through television and trying to print volumes of brochures and messages. It seems that people are seem to picking up is that local content flavor that individuals are really embracing and getting a message across. And this was definitely a vehicle that we had used, I guess, in the radio project that not only, I guess, was getting the message of climate change across, but it just generated such an energy and excitement that it could have been a standalone event in itself, in the form of the activities that were occurring at each of the locales that we did these radio projects, that it seemed to have the whole community talking about it and everyone was actually tuned into it. And for me, the challenging part of the old project, though, looking back on it, is I can't really take a counter and actually count the number of people that we actually were hitting with the signal. But I know that especially in the St. John's event, talking to some of the other partners were involved and people on the street, that was very interesting to see the large number that were actually talking and chatting about the new radio station that was happening up on Signal Hill. And the public service announcements that you see on air and are not, I think people are getting it. The message is there, but I think so they're so bombarded then with reality TV shows and whatnot that this local flavor again is the thing that seems to sell very well. And it's same thing I find within the contents of a lot of the programmings that we do. It's when you bring local voices to the projects to them versus somebody from outside trying to sell their concept and ideas. When they get embraced and involved, that you actually get the movement and the actual, I think when this for us was kind of the sowing the seeds of climate change, and now people are actually talking about an issue that prior to this event was basically non-existent to them.
The purpose of the Tuning into Climate Change project was to experiment with using grassroots participatory communication tools and to share the process. The first lesson learned has to be, this is a people-centered process. It will only work if people are willing to cooperate and work together. It includes community partners, participants, government officials, funders, and sponsors. We call the tools microtechnology. They are chosen to be user-friendly. We don't use technicians, but rather demystify technology so ordinary people don't feel threatened by the tools. So simply, if you want to attempt a similar experiment, there is only one question to ask. Do we have the people who will work together happily without being territorial? As someone once said, to facilitate a participatory process, you have to be willing to give it away. We welcome any questions about tuning into climate change. Visit the website, call us, email us, or drop by anytime.